good morning to both you gentlemen. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah,
Good morning.
good morning.
Mr. Bharti, can we begin with you and really start with basics here? How ready do you think is the sector you're representing on the broadcast today, the nation, really for these cars in India with 20% ethanol blend? We're not going to, as consumers, really have an option going forward.
First of all, let me, give you a statement of clarity and a statement of confidence. E20 and beyond, there is no problem in the car. The manufacturers have put in sufficient amount of design robustness so that consumers are not affected. Biofuels is a very large journey for India. And it's not just ethanol, for example, it's compressed biogas also. It could be a very powerful option for energy independence. We are importing a lot of crude. 85% of our total requirement is met by imports, and it puts a huge burden on the economy. So one is clean energy independence, and the other is carbon net zero. And biofuels is one of the most natural way of cutting CO2 emissions. And India is uniquely positioned to leverage this strength. Now, some doubts have been introduced, and I think those doubts should be put to rest. In terms of the car, there is no concern for consumers. The car has sufficient, factors of safety, and everything that ethanol can affect is taken care of. There is nothing on the engine, no impact to the engine. In terms of fuel efficiency, there is a marginal drop because the calorific value of ethanol is lesser than that of petrol or gasoline, and that would be of the order of 2 to 4%. But there are so many other factors in the future that can, quite cover up this. For example, the RON, the octane number, that can compensate in the future. So it's a matter of stabilization in the next few years. Even that mileage drop can be, to a large extent, recovered. And of course, as you rightly said, warranties are not affected, insurance is not affected.
Okay, I want to go over to Mr. Gulati to ask him a very similar question. Mr. Gulati, India's made this transition 5 years ahead of its target. I want you to reflect on what making this transition means, but also, Mr. Gulati, I want to ask you, the internet in the last few days flooded by users who've contacted their car companies, asked them, is my car compliant? These are often companies that might not be represented on this particular panel, but a lot of these companies have come forward and said, no. What is the average consumer supposed to do? What's your thought?
Well, thank you for having me. The ethanol program in India is not something that's happened overnight. We must realize that it's 21 years in the making. And it's just that in the last few years, thanks to the efforts of all stakeholders and progressive policies of the government, that it has really picked up. And in this journey, there have been very conscious studies, conscious decisions that have been taken, which are based on scientific studies. When we transitioned to E20, there was a study conducted by the leading automotive testing agency of the country, involving all stakeholders. This study involved old legacy vehicles of all OEMs, of all makes and sizes. Now, this study is the basis for what my colleague has just mentioned in terms of impact on the vehicle parts as well as mileage. And the study clearly shows that there is no significant impact. May I also add that even the shift to E20 hasn't happened overnight, let's say from March to April. It's been a progressive migration where we've gone from E10 to 12 to 15% to 19% and 20%. And in regions such as NCR, the ethanol E20 has been available for quite some time. So I think some of the concerns that are being raised around mileage, etc., uh, some of it, of course, a minor portion, 2 to 4%, as mentioned by Mr. Bharti, might be attributable to the calorific value of ethanol. But mileage, as you know, depends upon so many other factors, which includes the maintenance of the vehicle, the driving pattern, the other conditions in terms of road, etc. So I would say that consumers should have no significant concerns on this migration to E20.
Okay, lovely. I'm going to take a cue from that point and then go across to Mr. Bharti as well. Very interestingly, Mr. Gulati says that E20 is actually being used, and a lot of motorists, at least in Delhi NCR, perhaps are not even aware of the same, and it's been going on for a while. But the target was for 2030, Mr. Bharti, and in that sense, we're seeing a rewind of almost 5 years. Is that the reason you think there's so much anxiousness around it, that we needed some time to sort of stabilize into a phase wherein, we're more accepting of this change? Or do you think the car makers, everyone has had enough time to really make their vehicles compatible with high ethanol? Because ethanol also comes with a certain chemical components, and that means that your vehicle, especially the engine, will have to be compatible, E20 compatible going forward.
So I don't think it has anything to do with the preponement. As Mr. Gulati said, this transition has been happening, and the industry has been in discussion with the government since at least 2020 that I can recall. And the transition happened in steps. So sometimes we use terms interchangeably. For example, engine has no cause of concern at all. And whatever chemical components or the corrosive nature you mentioned, there are sufficient factors of safety built into the design of the car that can take care of any E10 to E20 is a very minor change.
Okay, and then let's just go back to Vikram to ask him, Mr. Gulati, we'll come to you. Mr. Gulati, if we could ask you, and you've already kind of answered that big question which a lot of consumers have, which is, are older cars that are currently on Indian roads compatible with higher ethanol blends? You've touched on that. But I do want to ask you, Mr. Gulati, there's a question that a lot of consumers are asking, that why at a higher price, if we are willing to pay a higher price, why can't we still get pure petrol, pure fuel? Why do we need to subscribe to this if we're willing to pay more? How would you answer them?
Well, it's you've got to look at it from this point of view. As a nation, we are energy deficient and we depend upon imports. And in the past, you've seen what that means, especially in the recent past, where there's been so much of geopolitical turmoil. So you would see, a potential possibility of oil going to, $100 plus a barrel. So the issue of energy independence, and particularly shift towards sustainable energy formats in the future, is something that as a society for us is non-negotiable. So if you keep that in perspective, the most important thing that we're trying to do with the ethanol program right now is address both of these issues. As a country, when you have 20% of blending, it means that you've attained 20% of energy in petrol, or people who are using petrol, which is indigenous and which is feeding your farms. The money that you would otherwise have spent to import the fossil fuels, which would have a significant adverse impact on the current account deficit and hence the economy, now becomes a very virtuous side, with the money flowing to the farmers, their incomes going up, and with that economic activity actually increasing and benefiting all concerned. In addition, it's a cleaner fuel. We all know, we are all, talking about not only climate change, and it's very visible in terms of the kind of rains we're having, as also pollution. It's a much, much cleaner fuel because it's biogenic. So I think it's not really about the issue of, immediate pricing. And the last point I'd like to add is, the pricing is a play of the market. So right now, the fossil fuel prices globally may be very down, something in the mid 60s per barrel, and that has that has a certain equation with regard to ethanol pricing. But these change very rapidly. So let's not look at the pricing of petrol versus ethanol right now. It's very transient. And moreover, let's focus on the larger national interest, which is of energy independence and clean fuels.
And since you've already spoken of it, let's also address the other part of the problem which is being raised by some. You spoke of how this is a cleaner fuel, it's a biofuel. So as far as environmental concerns go, this certainly is the long-term solution that the government is also speaking of. The other pro that comes with it, and this is as per government data, Mr. Gulati, 49,000 crore has been paid to farmers for ethanol procurement already. That's a win-win situation. Another set of data which is being cited by some of the experts. But there are those who are also arguing that ethanol production puts pressure on food crops and water. How do you see that balance between sustainability and fuel security then?
Yeah, so the data you cited is the 1 year data. Cumulatively, 1.2 trillion rupees has gone to the farmers so far.
Okay.
Now, this issue of food versus fuel or water, let's go back 5 years. What was happening in our economy? We had a situation where the sugarcane farmers were up in arms because they were not getting their due. The sugar industry was in dire straits, and the government was actually using taxpayers' money to pay subsidies to export that. We had huge surpluses in food grains which were rotting because of want of storage. And now, pull forward to 5 years. The excess sugar or the excess capacity from the sugar industry or the sugarcane farmers is now actually being diverted to ethanol. So nothing's changed other than the fact that you found a way where good economic use, which is also environmentally friendly, is being made of the surpluses that we had. Same thing with the food grains. The rotting food grains or the broken rice, etc., which is far in surplus, is actually going towards the ethanol program. Also, keep in mind, farming in India is a political economy issue. It means that you cannot change the farming patterns. So sugarcane production will be what it is. Excess rice in Punjab, Haryana, etc. will be what it is. But most importantly, the future is very promising, and it is not only linked to food grains or sugarcane, etc. This is the ethanol from these sources is basically called first generation. We're already in a phase where the government, oil companies have invested money, significant amounts, towards second generation of it, which comes from waste. For example, parali. And parali, we all know, is something of a big problem for all of us because farmers are actually burning it during winter time, and which is creating pollution. Now, if 2G ethanol were to take off, that would mean that waste can be converted into fuel. Additionally, people are also working in 3G, third generation, which is basically ethanol from algae. So I don't think this is really a big issue, and this has been substantiated by other major countries which are using ethanol blending in a big way. For example, Brazil and US and some Southeast Asian countries. My view is it's only making use of what otherwise currently would have gone to waste.
Okay, so what we've done in the last few minutes is address two of the biggest audience questions. One, obviously the question of will my old car be compatible? The second, the one that you've gone into depth about, is the sources in the future. But I want to touch on a part of this right now with Mr. Bharti. Mr. Bharti, if we could come to you, the other big question that audience have is long term, what happens to my car or my bike, the engine wear and tear with ethanol blended fuel? If we just keep our eyes on E20 right now, I want to ask you, what do studies already tell us conclusively?
So we have a very elaborate service network, and if any consumer thinks that if he has any cause of concern, as part of the regular maintenance regime, they can always, come to the service network and they will be adequately taken care of. So, and as I mentioned, there are adequate factors of safety built into the design that take care. There's a very marginal, long-term wear which the service network takes care of, and that is part of the regular maintenance regime that happens.
If a consumer wanted to understand what that marginal wear and tear actually looked like, how do you quantify it behind the scenes? What is the number, for example, you'd use maybe to describe it?
There is no such number. For example, if you ask what is the life of the car, is it 10 years or 20 years or is it 25? So there are no direct answers there. But if there is any cause of concern, and at least as I mentioned in the car, there are design factors of safety. So parts which are in regular contact with the E20 fuel are in any case have a higher design factor of safety built in. And over the longer term, as Mr. Gulati also mentioned, maybe ethanol with stabilized production, ethanol pricing comes down, the octane number comes down, because of which efficiencies can catch up. So as and when it stabilizes, we are in a process of maturing. For example, Brazil has already matured.
Right.
So the benefits will flow to the consumer also.
Okay, so let's once again take that as a cue. Let's talk about the Brazil story. For now, Mr. Bharti, Mr. Gulati have broadly highlighted three aspects which the government specifically is focused on, which is how this is the writing on the wall. This is here to stay. One is, of course, for cleaner fuel. One is for farmers' income, and of course for reduced oil imports. So that's another plus that we're focusing on, Mr. Gulati. But tell us about this huge potential that exists in India to enhance ethanol blending beyond E20, and Brazil can be a case in point. Can you tell us a little bit about this, and what will this approach next be? What is it that Brazil did that perhaps India can do going forward?
Yeah, I'll address this question both from the supply side as well as the demand side. From the supply side, currently there is enough surplus beyond E20 that's available, which needs to be addressed. Some estimates say that over and above the 1,016 crore liters that are needed for E20 program, there is going to be around 200 to 500 crore liters that are going to be available in the next year and a half. And this is not to talk about the potential that remains untapped. Some estimates say that there is 20% more potential in the next 5 years. And this is just talking about 1G. The potential from 2G and 3G is actually going to be phenomenal. So from supply side, there is going to be a significant amount of ethanol that is available. But to take this up, going ahead in the journey now, from now onwards to future, looking at the global experience, we feel in the future, for various reasons, the most appropriate approach on the demand side would have to be introduction and promotion of flex fuel vehicles. Now, these are vehicles which are capable of using any blend of ethanol, let's say from 20% to 100%. So the consumer has a full choice whether he wants to go in for the available blend, which is E20, or fill up more of ethanol or all of ethanol. So this is a case study in Brazil, which has seen that its consumption of ethanol phenomenally shot up post the introduction of flex fuel vehicles. Now, flex fuel vehicles are nothing of a great challenge for the automotive industry. In fact, most of the OEMs, whether in the four-wheeler space or the two-wheeler space, have shown the prototypes. But I think going forward, suitable policy enablers, if they are put in place, you would see a larger emergence of flex fuel vehicle technology in the market, which I think then can spin off a virtuous cycle where the huge potential supply that is available in the market can be addressed seamlessly and without any disruption.
Let's just go over to Mr. Bharti. Mr. Bharti, coming to you for closing comments here. Just want to see the way in which you look at the future. Is it similarly positive? Do you see the Brazil model completely being adopted here?
Yes, and I would agree with Mr. Gulati also. So once we have a base level of blending, which is for all consumers, any additional ethanol production in the country or additional ethanol that can go into cars or two-wheelers can be taken by flex fuel vehicles. The technology exists. Many manufacturers are launching models. We will be coming out with a flex fuel model that can take any blend of ethanol from 20 to 100, whatever the consumer feels like filling. So it's a journey that has started, and along with other biofuels like compressed biogas, we will keep resolving so that we have energy independence, we have environment friendliness, and we have the advantage of economics flowing into our domestic sections of society like farmers, etc.
Okay, so Mr. Gulati, are you, and this is a yes or no before we quickly wrap up, are you telling us that those who own a car which perhaps was manufactured in 2003, because that's the most commonly asked question, can sip this blend without breaking a sweat? And if yes, what are the rules they follow? 3 thumb rules they follow?
Yeah, I think they need not worry. Simple rules they need to follow is make sure they are following the maintenance regime as is required for any automobile. So the fact that if you're doing the regular maintenance, there should be no concern.